Hello and welcome back into another episode of Bite Size Steelers. I am your host, Simon Short. We are going to preview the Steelers and 49ers game kicking off week one for both teams of the NFL season in Pittsburgh on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Let's first start with an injury report update. We are recording this episode Friday afternoon, the 8th. Typically, I'm going to be recording these previews probably Wednesday night. So we'll at least have the first injury report at that time, but luckily we get 2 days worth of injury updates from both teams as of now. So again, Friday, it's about 2 p.m. Eastern time as I record, so I don't have the Friday injury report, but let's just kind of focus on what we know so far. Cameron Hayward and Larry Ogunjobi, defensive linemen for the Pittsburgh Steelers, did not participate. Well, Cam Hayward did not participate on Thursday's practice for a personal, non-injury related / stomach issue. And then Larry Ogunjobi has been limited this week, Wednesday and Thursday, with his foot injury, which I don't know if it's even right to call it an injury. He's been in and out of a walking boot since various parts of training camp. He hasn't been practicing too much, and I believe this is the same foot that he has really been dealing with on and off for the last couple of seasons. It seems like people are fairly confident that Ogunjobi is going to play this game. Cam Hayward as well, for sure. That one's a little more likely in my eyes. Ogunjobi is one to watch though, but they managed him a lot last season as well. There were a lot of weeks that he was limited participant, wearing boot between games, and he played a majority of last season. I do think in terms of his play and his ability, this will be interesting to watch because he definitely had his highs and lows last year dealing with that injury, and obviously they gave him that big contract this offseason. So continuing to monitor that throughout the season will be interesting. But as of right now, it looks like the Steelers should be, quote unquote, knock on wood, pretty healthy going into this game against the 49ers. San Francisco, on the other hand, has a much lengthier injury report going on. So we'll just go through some of these names, especially the ones that were either limited or did not participate in Thursday's practice. So Oren Burks is a linebacker. He's been limited Wednesday and Thursday with a knee injury. Not a big name on the roster, but is slated to be a starting linebacker on the team this year. Both starting safeties, Tashawn Gibson and Talanoa Ufanga, have both been limited or less this week. Gibson limited Wednesday and Thursday with a back injury. Ufanga was limited with a knee on Wednesday and then did not participate for what they're calling a personal matter on Thursday. But those are both starting safeties for the 49ers. And let's not forget, they also lost Jimmy Ward, who was a safety / nickel corner for them, really for the last handful of years. But primarily, we want to think about this team last year. So they have a lot of turnover and a lot up in the air when it comes to the DB room. Coincidentally, at the same time, George Odom was a free agent that they brought in, a safety. He has been a full participant the last 2 days, but he does have a shoulder designation that he, I guess, has dealt with in the past, obviously recently. So he might even be limited as a player if he's going to have to play big snaps with Gibson and Ufunga dealing with whatever they might be dealing with. So we'll keep an eye on both of those guys because both starting safeties being out for a team that just lost Jimmy Ward, and they did draft a third-round safety, Jair Brown. So we'll keep an eye on that. Tight end George Kittle has been limited Wednesday and Thursday with a groin injury, something that he has suffered on and off throughout his career with the 49ers, and most notably missed the first 2 games of last season with a groin injury. And Kittle seems pretty confident he's going to play through this. He told reporters on Thursday that he's excited to play Sunday and he expects to play Sunday, but that could be a limiting factor for him as well, even if he is playing. Let's see, Jordan Mason, a running back. I think he was one of the draft picks this year. Limited participant both days. Obviously, he's third string at this point. Former Steeler Ray McLeod, wrist injury, limited both days. Jake Moody, the kicker they drafted with a quad, limited both days. They signed Zane Gonzalez to their practice squad, so we'll see if there's an elevation there. Let's see. Trent Williams got a veteran day off on Wednesday, but was full Thursday. Brock Purdy has been full Wednesday and Thursday. Charvarius Ward, number one corner, a really, really underrated cornerback, in my opinion, was did not participate on Thursday with a heel issue. So that's something to monitor here for Friday. And obviously, the big one is Nick Bosa, who was a limited participant on Thursday after signing his gigantic mega extension. That day or late Wednesday night. So we will see. So he's the big one, obviously the big name for us to kind of highlight and think about. It's hard to imagine he'd be like a full go playing 75, 80, 85% of the snaps on Sunday, having not been in training camp, having not been in preseason. But I expect him to play. I don't think this is going to be a situation where he's sitting out to get his lungs back together or learn the defense or anything. What I'll talk about this when we get into the keys for the game, but I would expect Bosa to be in various packages, especially on third downs, especially on third and longs, where he can just kind of bend his ears back and go. Maybe if Steve Wilks has changed, Steve Wilks, new defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, maybe if he's changed the run fits at all, the concepts for run defense or anything like that, maybe he plays a little bit less, but they do have the same defensive line coach that they've had for a number of years. So maybe there won't even really be a lot of changes in terms of that. But obviously a very lengthy injury report for the 49ers for us to kind of keep an eye on here on Friday as the Friday injury report rolls in. But the key ones obviously are Bosa, the starting defensive backs, Charvarius Ward, Tayshaun Gibson, and Talanoa Hufanga, and tight end George Kittle. All right, let's move on from the injury report here. And what I want to do with these previews is give you 3 keys for the offense and 3 keys for the defense every single week. As we go through the season, these keys will be a little more specific and a little more tailored to what has been happening for the Steelers this season, right? So let's say, for example, Najee Harris is having an incredible season. Let's say he's being super efficient. Success rate is high. Yardage is high. Touchdowns are high. His pass blocking is great. His goal line work, short yardage is great. Let's say the run game is just magnificent. I'm not going to make key to the game have a good running game because, that's what they do. That's what they're doing. That's what they're already having success in. So it'll be something that they're either struggling with or something that the opposing team particularly is either really good at. Like, let's say they're playing a team who's leading the league in interceptions. Well, a key that week will be to not throw interceptions. Let's say that a team is particularly poor on for their third down defense. Then a key would be, hey, make sure you're really successful on third down, because if you're not and they're bad at that, then that's really going to hurt your chances of winning the game, right? So here for week 1 and probably week 2 as well, these will be fairly generic, fairly obvious things when you really kind of sit down and look at it, but things that you want to see for the building blocks for the foundation for the 2023-2024 season. All right, so let's get into it. 3 keys for the offense, for Pittsburgh's offense going into this game against the 49ers. Number 1 is attack. We saw this team in preseason push the ball downfield and create yak opportunities with their wide receivers. We need to continue to see that when the Steelers take the field on Sunday. Can't be something that we only saw in preseason, only saw against the Bills starters, but in the first preseason game and then against backups in the next 2 weeks. The 49ers, I mentioned, their defensive backs, even if all those guys end up playing, they're dealing with injuries. They're dealing with limited reps during practice this week. So they need to be attacked. They need to be pushed. And then especially if they have second stringers in, if it's George Odom and Jair Brown, for example, you have to test those guys. You have to put the ball deep. You have to put the ball over the middle of the field on slants and digs and crossers to really try and create yak opportunities, as well as creating some deep shots for Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. So I really want to see the Steelers push the ball vertically in this game. Need to see them work the middle of the field. Need to see them take some risks for some yak opportunities. We saw just last night, Thursday Night Football season opener, Detroit Lions against Kansas City Chiefs. We're creating a lot of open spaces in the middle of the field for simple slant routes for Jared Goff to throw to Amon-Ra St. Brown. And that created yak opportunity. That created big plays, even on just a simple concept. So really push the ball, really try to attack. Don't kind of sit back into a shell that the team was in last season just because it's now the regular season and you're going against the 49ers, who even with the change in defensive coordinator, should be one of the better defensive teams in the NFL this season. Key number 2 for the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, stay ahead of the sticks. To stay ahead of the team like the 49ers, who again have a really good defense and should be, might be, we'll get into that, should or might be a good offense once again this season. Pittsburgh has to stay ahead of the chains. There can't be a 3 and out 2 of the first 3 drives, right? Or something where your time of possession in the first quarter is significantly behind because you can't get anything going. This team has to get first downs. It has to stay on schedule. To do this, Najee does have to get going and have an efficient start to the game. So first down can't be a 2-yard run. We need to see 4 and 5 yard runs on first down. We need to see converted 3rd and shorts. We need to see them be willing to create some easy throws for Kenny and willing to let him make some plays, right? If it's a 3rd and 5, be willing to let Kenny try to make a play with any of those receivers that we've been talking about all offseason. This team needs to stay ahead of the sticks. It can't be too conservative early on, because against a really good team, a really well-coached team, even if you think the Niners are limited in certain aspects of their roster, you can't fall behind. They're too well-coached. They're too disciplined. There's too much veteran savvy on the team. You have to stay ahead of the chains on offense. And I mentioned Nick Bosa. I think if he does have an impact on this game, it is going to be on those 3rd and long. So you don't want to get in too many of those, because that guy's still going to be coming at you, even on the limited practice reps he's had. He's going to play. I'm 90% sure of it. And whatever his limitations are, whatever his snap limit is, he's going to be out there on 3rd down passing situations, trying to get after the quarterback. And that leads me here to number 3. The 3rd key for the offense is keep it clean. And that means everything. That means keep Kenny clean, keep him off the ground. I want to see this offensive line kind of translate what they did in the preseason, which was they were good. They gave Kenny a lot of time. I think this can be a really good offensive line this season. So I want to see Kenny stay clean and stay upright. And that means no turnovers. So that goes for everybody, especially Kenny, though, but it goes for everybody. Take care of the ball. Taking sacks and turning the ball over makes things easy for a defense and puts your own defense at a disadvantage. Don't give this 49ers defense that's working through some things, has some injuries, has some guys that haven't practiced a lot. Don't make it easy for them by turning the ball over. And for this offense, which I think is at a disadvantage against the Steelers defense, don't make things easy for them by giving them short fields, giving them multiple opportunities, and making them not have to come back from Pittsburgh scoring, right, to continue to be ahead on the scoreboard as well. All right, 3 keys for the defense. So first things first, get after the quarterback. The Steelers front 7, we've seen deal with injuries on and off over the last few years. Everybody's out there right now. Everybody's healthy. TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith, new linebackers, Landon Roberts and Quan Alexander, Marcus Golden, Nick Herbig. We saw those guys in the preseason. Even worked the safeties in there. Demonte Casey, Keanu Neal, everyone. Put pressure on Brock Purdy. I've said this in a number of other places all off season. I'm very happy about the Brock Purdy experience. It's a really cool story. I think he's a fine player, but it's a guy you can get after. This is a guy that last year showed that he is kind of jittery. He likes to get out of the pocket. He likes to drift back in the pocket. Something I said about Kenny that I watched a lot for Kenny last season. It was something he did at Pitt. Brock Purdy isn't Jimmy Garoppolo, right? He isn't a snap the ball, 3-step drop, go through all your reads, and then make the safe and simple pass. He wants to air it out. He wants to go deep. He wants to extend the play, get out of the pocket, avoid pressure, and look for something downfield, create opportunities. The only problem is he's not quite the athlete that the best quarterbacks in the NFL are that are really good at that. So take advantage of that, right? If that guy gets out of the pocket, you've got to put him on the ground. And better yet, don't let him get out of the pocket. If you know that's what he wants to do, he wants to hold on to the ball, don't even let him escape. Collapse that pocket and get after him. So I want to see this defense from a schematic standpoint, put some pressure on Brock Purdy. You signed a Landon Roberts and Quan Alexander, who are downhill, hard-hitting linebackers. Blitz them. Use it. Go after Purdy with that. This 49ers defensive line, Although Shanahan always coaches them up and gets them to work well in what they want to do, especially on the interior, they aren't the most talented group. Alex Highsmith is obviously going to have his hands full with Trent Williams over on that side, but everywhere else, I think you can attack. So TJ Watt going after, I believe it's going to be Colton McKivitz as the starting right tackle for the Niners. That should be a matchup where Watt eats and gets a couple of sacks, but then work the interior guys with the linebackers as well, really get after it. I want to see them really test the elbow of Purdy as well. I'm not saying smack the elbow, but just get after him. Make him make plays, quick plays, smart plays with pressure all around him, and don't let him get into a rhythm. The next key number 2 for the defense is sound tackling. We've seen this team, and it has to do a lot with the linebacker play over the last couple of years, not be sound tacklers. The 49ers skill guys are too good to give up explosive plays to, especially after the catch or after first contact from a running back. They'll do enough of that on their own in terms of the wide receivers are just so good. They're going to get separation. I mentioned Shanahan and their concepts in the run game and the talent of Christian McCaffrey and even Elijah Mitchell. They're going to run. They're going to get yards. They're going to get first downs. They're probably going to get a couple touchdowns through it. It's a good run game. The offense itself, or from the passing game, is good conceptually, and it's good receivers. And like I said, Brock Purdy's fine. They're going to create some passing opportunities, but don't also compound giving up a catch or giving up a 5 or 6 yard run by missing a tackle and giving up an extra 5, 10, 20 plus yards of yak or yards after contact. Sound tackling, wrap up, get on the ground, gang tackle, everyone get to the ball. We need to see this team flying around and making sure that the likes of George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk don't take off and run around all over the place. Let's see. Third and final key for the defense. And this is something I mentioned a lot on the preview show. If you haven't listened to that already, my preview for the season, where I went over the whole roster, went over the schedule, all of that, some of the key things for both sides of the ball. And it's communication on the back end, right? So those defensive backs, that personnel turnover that the Steelers went through this offseason, Terrell Edmonds, Cam Sutton, guys who had been on the team for years, gone. Patrick Peterson in, Joey Porter Jr. in, DeMonte Casey in year 2, Keanu Neal coming in. There has to be sound communication on that back end. You cannot give up explosive plays to this 49ers offense, especially, I mean, the yak thing you almost expect, right? It's something that's just what they do, but don't also give up a wide open, 40-yard play down the sideline to Brandon Ayuk because the corner didn't know when to pass it off to Minka or vice versa, right? A coach like Shanahan, he's going to know what the weaknesses of the Steelers defense are. He's going to look back at the things they ran last year. He's going to look at the things they ran in the preseason. He's going to know what guys like DeMonte Casey and Keanu Neal like to do, having played against them at various points. He's gonna draw up some stuff that's going to work against this team. Pittsburgh just has to be on their P's and Q's when it comes to communication. With a quarterback like Purdy, who you should have an advantage against, don't let him off the hook and give him an easy 7 with a wide open pass, right? Don't let Christian McCaffrey slip out of the backfield unmarked and run for 40 yards, stuff like that. Don't let the 49ers, when they go on offense, be able to get off the field quick, right? And without any kind of turnover or attrition on them by giving them just an easy play on their first, down set of downs. Make it tough, make them earn every single yard. I know this sounds really cliche and, like old school Steelers football kind of deal, but it's true, especially here for week 1 against a team that in the 49ers, on paper, you could probably say has more talent overall. But when you really kind of look at it and you look at the quarterback play, the Steelers defense, I mentioned on the show, should be an elite top 5 defense. And if what I believe about Brock Purdy is true, a top 5 defense going against Brock Purdy, no matter how good the weapons are, should be able to win that matchup. All right, that's it. That's the injury report. Again, as of Friday, we got the Thursday injury report in. Haven't gotten it yet for Friday, so keeping an eye on those names I had mentioned. Those are the keys for the offense and the defense going into this week. And get out your terrible towels, and everybody enjoy Sunday afternoon. We will be back to you next week. We'll do one show recapping the game, and then we'll do another show later in the week previewing week 2. These episodes will probably come out Tuesday, I would say, for the recap, and then Thursday or Friday, I would say, for the preview. So just make sure you are subscribed to the Bite Size NFL feed here on Spotify, and you'll get the updates automatically, obviously, sent to your phone. Make sure you're following on Twitter. Make sure you're following me on Twitter as well, at Simon_Short, and that is short with 2 T's. And you'll get all the updates on this pod and all the other team pods for Bite Size Sports. So thank you all so much for listening to Bite Size Steelers. We will talk to you next time.